Hi everyone, I'm Alice from Econ Valley's Salesforce team. Today, I'd like to share how we help organizations protect the most critical data in their CRM, and how we make Salesforce usage and access truly visible and controllable. In this video, I'll walk you through three things. First, where the most commonly overlooked access and usage risks in Salesforce usually come from. Second, I'll show you how Salesforce Inspector brings together user status, logging activity, MFA security, and overall system usage into one clear centralized view. And finally, I'll explain how these insights can be turned into actionable, trackable governance, so Salesforce becomes a system you can manage effectively over the long term. We all know that Salesforce is a truly core system for any enterprise. It's not just a CRM tool. It's a central data hub that supports daily operations and decision-making. Within the platform, companies store their most critical customer information, including account details, contact data, and communication records. It also captures the entire sales journey, from leads and opportunities to quotes, contracts, and orders, with every record reflecting real business interactions and closed deals. On top of that, it includes service cases and marketing activity data, showing how the company responds to customer needs and builds long-term relationships. When all of this information is centralized in one platform, Salesforce represents far more than the customer list. It holds the logic behind business operations, sales strategies, pricing structures, and even market positioning. If unauthorized access or a data breach occurs, the impact goes beyond the system itself. It can disrupt operations and, more importantly, undermine customer trust in the brand. So next, I'd like to ask you to think about one thing. Do you really know who or which systems can currently access your complete customer data? On the surface, everything may look compliant. The users seem authorized, permissions appear reasonable, and security settings don't raise any obvious red flags. From the outside, it all looks fine. But behind what looks normal, are there things you may not be seeing? Accounts that haven't been used for a long time but still have access. Users whose identity or actual usage isn't entirely clear. Or accounts that still don't fully meet your existing security requirements. Most of these situations don't trigger alerts. The system may not show any visible issues at all. But the risk has already been there. It's just been easy to miss because we couldn't see it. Why are these risks so often overlooked? It's not because teams aren't careful enough. It's because the information itself is too fragmented. In Salesforce, user status, logging behavior, MFA settings, and actual system usage are spread across different admin and settings pages. When day-to-day operations are running smoothly, administrators naturally don't check every day which accounts are still active and which have quietly become dormant. As a result, everything looks fine on the surface. Accounts exist, permissions seem reasonable, and there are no obvious security red flags. But underneath, risks are slowly building up. They just aren't visible in real time. The issue isn't weak governance standards. It's that Salesforce wasn't designed for holistic visibility into usage and access. What's missing is a way to bring all this scattered information together so administrators can see at a glance which accounts are truly trustworthy and which ones need closer attention. What Salesforce Inspector does is actually quite simple. It takes all the Salesforce usage and management information that's usually scattered across different places and brings it together into a clear, easy-to-understand management view. Instead of looking at just one setting at a time, it provides a holistic perspective, covering cost, security, and actual usage, so managers can quickly understand how Salesforce is really being used. With everything integrated into one dashboard, key insights are all in one place. You can immediately see things like license utilization, storage capacity, MFA adoption, and user activity levels, without jumping between multiple setup pages. It doesn't just give you raw data. It provides organized, actionable insights you can actually use. For management, this level of visibility and reliable data helps reduce unnecessary costs, strengthen account and data security, and ensure a smoother transition to Salesforce Lightning. Let's start with the first key area: Cost optimization. Many organizations know that Salesforce licenses are expensive. The real challenge is that it's often hard to see whether those licenses are actually being used effectively. In Salesforce Inspector, this starts with user licenses. You can clearly see what types of licenses you have, how many are available, and how close you are to your overall limit. This matters because, in practice, license overuse or hitting capacity limits rarely happens overnight. It usually builds up gradually, and by the time you notice, it's often already too late to react. Next, we look at the assigned license details. Here, you can see exactly which features each user has been assigned, including marketing, knowledge, data cloud, or flow. This means you're not just seeing what was purchased, but who is actually using what. And that's critical for cost management, because very often the issue isn't the lack of licenses, but licenses being assigned to users who don't really need them. This view makes it immediately clear which users are actively working in Salesforce and which accounts haven't logged in for a long time but are still consuming licenses. These zombie users don't cause errors and don't affect daily operations, but from a cost perspective, they quietly continue to drain resources. This is where Salesforce Inspector really adds value. It doesn't just tell you how many users you have, it clearly highlights where licenses can be optimized and which accounts should be reviewed. Finally, we look at storage usage. Both data and file storage are monitored, helping you avoid unexpected overage charges or rushed expansions when limits are closed. Taken together, this isn't about cutting costs. It's about making informed adjustments, understanding what's truly being used and what can be optimized, so Salesforce becomes more efficient and more cost-effective without disrupting your business. Next, let's move on to the second key area, multi-factor authentication, or MFA. In Salesforce, MFA is no longer a nice-to-have, it's a basic and necessary security requirement. But in real-world environments, many organizations run into the same challenge. You may know that MFA is required, but you don't always have clear visibility into who still hasn't enabled it. On the left side of the screen, you'll see an overall view of MFA adoption, giving you an immediate sense of the current enablement status across the environment. On the right, you'll find a detailed list of users who have not yet enabled MFA, including the username, user role, and last login time. This list is especially important because these accounts are often the highest priority risks. Some may be legacy accounts. Others may hold significant permissions but have not yet been brought up to standard from a security perspective. Without a centralized way to review this, these accounts are easy to overlook. And when unauthorized access happens, it often starts from exactly these gaps. The value of Salesforce Inspector is that it doesn't just tell you that MFA hasn't been fully adopted. It gives you a clear, actionable list showing exactly which accounts need to be addressed first. As a result, MFA stops being just a policy requirement and becomes something that's truly enforced as part of everyday account management. From a governance perspective, this also creates a clear, defensible record for internal audits and security reviews. Next, let's look at how the Salesforce interface is actually being used. Many organizations know that Lightning is the future, but the real challenge is often not whether to migrate, it's not knowing who is still using Classic today. In this view, Salesforce Inspector clearly shows the distribution of Lightning and Classic users. At a glance, you can see how many people have already moved to Lightning and which users are still working in the Classic interface. On the right-hand side, you'll find a detailed list of users still on Classic, including their names, roles, and most recent login activity. This removes the guesswork for administrators. Instead of assumptions, you have clear data on which users or teams should be the starting point for migration planning and communication. For organizations, this goes far beyond interface preference. It directly impacts future feature support, user efficiency, and the long-term sustainability of the Salesforce platform. With this level of visibility, companies can plan training and migration timelines more strategically, guiding users toward Lightning-specific capabilities step by step, rather than being forced into a rushed, organization-wide transition when Classic eventually reaches end of support. In simple terms, Salesforce Inspector turns interface usage from something unclear and reactive into a transition that can be planned, managed, and executed with confidence. The value of Salesforce Inspector lies in giving organizations a clear understanding of who is using Salesforce, how it's being used, and which usage patterns are no longer appropriate. When these conditions are laid out clearly, management is no longer about routine checks. It becomes informed adjustment and deliberate decision-making. Organizations can clearly determine which accounts need attention, which behaviors should be corrected, and which decisions need to move forward. This is how Salesforce management moves from uncertainty to a state that is clear, controllable, and actionable.